Maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe I'm being harsh. Sorry, Rory. Sorry. It was my fault. I did not trust anyone outside of myself. I did not trust my own intuition. I knew it was a bad idea to watch Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life, and yet I did it. Last year, I watched all of Gilmore Girls through. And after, 9 seasons, an entire year of my life, I ran out of episodes. And so what did I do? I missed my dear Gilmore Girls, right? I'm from Connecticut. I thought, I'm missing this crisp fall season as I live here in Los Angeles. I need a little bit of nostalgia. I need to bring back these quirky, fun characters from Stars Hollow. So I finished the show. I read Lauren Graham's memoir. I've run out of Gilmore Girls content to absorb. So what do? I decide to watch Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. And boy, oh boy, I, along with the rest of the world, was let down. We're going to discuss every inch of this show. Now, I don't want to start off on the wrong foot, right? Like that's crazy. What did I like about the show? The majority of it was bad, but I can't say that every single moment of it was bad. So these are the things I liked out of Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. Number 1, Kirk in general. Love that man down. Hope he's doing okay. Uber was funny. Paris Geller, funny as hell. The briefcase scene, the bathroom scene at Chilton Private School in Hartford, Connecticut. She said, "There's nothing in this briefcase." That's hilarious. You're hilarious. Then, of course, Logan and Rory. There's so many issues with Logan and Rory, but their chemistry, undeniable. I was kicking my feet and giggling. I was also like, they're going to hell, but also like kicking my feet and giggling. Like, it was nice. Like, that was the magic of the first show, is that she had so much chemistry with these guys. I also really liked the subtle nod to the 30-somethings, like the 30-something club. I think a lot of millennials were just struggling in the workforce at this time. And maybe it's like a meme that like, millennials had to like move in with their parents and like start anew. But it is true. And so I like that they kind of tipped their hat to the epidemic that was millennials living with their parents. It's still happening. It's still happening with Gen Z. But I felt like, okay, at least we're kind of like in the same cultural zeitgeist. I also think it was good to know that like Rory was not the only millennial in Stars Hollow struggling and having to come back. I almost wish that we got more time with this with this group of people in Stars Hollow and have a better understanding of like what really is going on. Why can't millennials get a job? Is it their work ethic? Is it the economy? Is it like all of these things? I think it would have been beneficial to like spend more time with the group as versus to like make the entire thing a joke, because although it was acknowledged, the entire thing was like it was a joke. It was a joke. Another thing that I like within Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life was Emily Gilmore getting a house on Nantucket. I liked her arc. I like that we saw her mourn, we saw her grieve, we saw her cope, and now we get to see her heal. And I really like that her arc was kind of represented in the portrait of Richard, where her grief was so big that she had to get a ginormo portrait and hang it up in the living room, only to finally like get a normal sized portrait of Richard, hang it up in the new house. The only thing that like didn't make sense to me regarding Emily and the houses in particular is that Rory, kind of has this big old moment in Richard's office and she's reflecting on her moments with him. She's like, this is where I'm going to write the book. Except she wrote the first 3 chapters and then Emily sold the house, and then that's not where she's writing the book, That made no sense to me. And so now we're going to get into the next section, which is things that made no sense to me. Oh, first off, that damn play just kept going and going and going. On and on and on. None of it made sense. They started tapping into Lin-Manuel Miranda, which obviously for 2016, like, that was a big moment. But just the sheer amount of screen time, only for then Lorelai, she sees herself in the last number and whatever. I do think that there was a better way to kind of illustrate Lorelai's growth, so to speak. It just kept going. And then with the play, so there's the play screen time. Then we have the fact that all of this is going down in Miss Patty's ballet school. And like, luckily we saw Miss Patty for even a moment, but I'm just kind of like, where was she the entire time? I don't know if she was off filming something else. I don't know if she was off just like resting. She didn't want to participate, or if she was not feeling well. I know that shortly after the original series, she lost like a tremendous amount of weight. So I don't know if she just wasn't feeling well, but her not being featured in the show when Miss Patty's School of Ballet was like such a big part of the revival series was interesting to me. So there's that. Then we have new characters being introduced at every turn. There was even a moment in the parking lot of the ballet school where the new actress who's playing, you know, the main lead in the play, there's only 2 actors in the play and then a couple dancers. They have like a big old moment. She's smoking a cig outside. She said, yeah, I wasn't Kinky Boots. I don't feel like we needed any of that. I don't care. I don't know who you are. You're a brand new character after years and years and years of beloved characters being missed. You don't need to reintroduce like the new actress in the play. Another thing that didn't really make sense, Rachel Ray? Why? Oh my God. I mean, I guess it's kind of funny. Suki was off doing something for 2 years. They needed like a replacement chef or something. I don't know why Rachel Ray was there. I don't know if that was to illustrate that like Lorelai, has some street cred and she's like a credible business now and people like celebrity chefs want to work with her. Because Rachel Ray was not playing a character. She was playing Rachel Ray. LOL. Third thing that didn't make sense to me that oh my God. Okay. As an Asian American woman, Lane Kim was my representation. I needed to see her on my screen. She was Rory Gilmore's best friend. Obviously, as time goes on and she goes to Chilton and then she goes to Yale, like Paris Geller kind of fulfills that, best friend archetype in Rory's life. But Lane Kim was her bestie from the jump. And the fact that not only did she get a terrible arc in the original series, it's like, okay, she's still here in Stars Hollow. She has 2 little twins. We never meet them. For whatever reason, we meet Paris Geller's 2 kids with Doyle in New York. And instead of introducing the 2 kids, we finally see her dad. I don't know if that was like, that probably was a huge discourse post the original series of like, oh, why, where's Lane's dad? And so maybe that was an answer to that. But me personally, I didn't need to meet Lane Kim's dad. I wanted to flesh out her relationship with her family. Is she fulfilled? Do we know? Like, I just feel like she got like the shit end of the stick. She didn't get to become a rock star. And instead she's playing drums softly at a secret speakeasy in Stars Hollow with her husband. Kids are nowhere to be found. They should at least be like 10 years old by this point. I really wish I knew like if she was satisfied, if her and her mom have kind of resolved certain things. I just think that her arc was neglected in the original series and then again in the reboot. How are you going to do her dirty twice? Then in the show, Michelle kind of explores leaving the Dragonfly Hotel, the Dragonfly Inn. This obviously is a catalyst to have Lorelai kind of ask her mom for money again, which I'll get into that. Hated that. But it's just like, did he end up leaving? I mean, when we end the series, she ends up, agreeing to the loan and so on and so forth. I guess we can assume that Michelle doesn't leave, but it's like when they were discussing Michelle leaving the inn, it was not just a matter of expansion of the inn, right? It was, you can't pay me enough money and you can't keep cutting money out of your own paycheck to pay me. Now we can assume that like if they expand the inn and then they get more revenue, then maybe Michelle can get paid more, but he's not going to be paid more than the Marriott or the W Hotel or the Ritz-Carlton or whoever was offering him more money, This is a man now in his 40s or 50s and you're just gravely underpaying him. Like, I'm just like, what happened? Did he wanted to stay after that? And how long did it take to renovate the hotel before he even got a pay raise? Then we have Paul. It just wasn't reading funny to me. I think the whole Paul bit of like, oh, what's his name? How long have you been dating him? Who's that guy? It's not funny because now you're hanging out with Logan, a very much engaged man. You have a boyfriend of I don't know how many years at this point. Your mom can't remember his name. You forget to call him. And then once every 2 episodes, you're like, oh, Paul. Not to mention you slept with a Wookiee. It's not funny anymore. It's one thing, I feel like it's one thing if you're cheating on your whatever boyfriend with like the love of your life and your childhood, you know, college boyfriend, and it's the one that got away and whatever. It's another thing to just like go to New York for the day to work on some failed assignment and then sleep with like a Wookiee because you're feeling bad. It's not funny. Like, it wasn't reading like quirky sitcom. It was reading like, you're a terrible person. You really don't give a fuck about anyone but yourself. Sorry, Rory. Sorry. And the way that Lorelai didn't really care about it, I mean, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. It didn't seem like there was like this high regard for like, hey, you need to like break up with your boyfriend, which I'm surprised by, considering in the original series, there was this very vivid scene of Lorelai catching Rory with Dean and giving an entire monologue saying, you know what? You can't do this, right? That's not your man. You can't treat people like that. You can't treat, Lindsay, you can't treat Lindsay like that. That's not right. That's not like morally correct. You can't do things like that. And so I think it was unrealistic for Lorelai not to really say anything about the Paul situation, kind of make light of it. And it was hard for me to believe that Lorelai wouldn't like step in any way. Obviously now Rory's an adult. She can kind of make her own decisions, but like clearly she can't. Clearly she can't be left to her own devices. The last thing that like just really made no sense to me, and maybe there was, let me look up. Was there any intention of reviving Gilmore Girls A Year in the Life? Okay. So there was no intention from the creators of the show to provide like another follow-up season to Gilmore Girls A Year in the Life. So this ending is intentional from the creators. And the ending is that Rory announces to her mother that she's pregnant. And the purpose of that was to get people talking, get people like me and you talking. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was stupid, and I thought it was so sad to see her down bad. She's not in a good position at this point, really. Let's be honest. You're writing a book. We don't know if it's going to be successful or not. And so she says, Mom, I'm pregnant. And we cut. And that's the end of Gilmore Girls, the franchise, ever again. It just, I mean, you know, as a media enjoyer, I understand that it's to kind of bring things full circle and have Rory end up in the same place that we meet Lorelai, right? They were both 32. Lorelai when the show started and Rory in this revival. And boy, oh boy, that was terrible. Terrible decision. I feel sad now. Great. And now we've all spent 20 years invested in this show, essentially, for it to end the same way that it started. Whatever. Moving on to the next part. These are my unanswered questions. Lorelai gets a loan from Emily towards the end of the show to expand the Dragonfly Inn in exchange for a 2-week stay on Nantucket on Emily's new property in the summer and you know, holiday visits and stuff like that. And within the show, Lorelai acknowledges, oh my God, haha, like full circle moment. Like everything comes back to what it was. What the fuck? Once again, although this was like intentionally a full circle moment, it just felt sad to me again. How is it that we have spent years and years and years trying to develop these relationships, trying to mend things with Emily, and we kind of just end up back where we were in episode 1, season 1, air date October 5th, the year 2000. Whatever. I didn't think that was a good decision. I don't know why they did that. Next, will Luke and Lorelai have kids? I hated that entire storyline within this series. Why did they make Luke the worst person in the planet? Very clearly, he goes, you have your fucked up family. I have mine. We've agreed to keep it separate. I don't want to get married. Da da da. Right? She finally comes back from her hiking trip, hiking quote unquote, and he gets into this whole big old thing. I'll do anything for you. I'll drop everything for you. Everything I do is for you. What happened? What happened from last week? I threatened to leave you and now you care. This is just very out of character for Luke. He is someone who has cared for Lorelai very deeply and very actively from the start. I don't understand where this like cynical, I mean, you know, he's always been cynical, but like, I just don't understand where this like kind of undeserving guy comes from. He's like, I moved out for you. I moved in with you. Like, everything that I've done is only for you. I don't do anything for myself. I don't want any of this. Only to a week later, after her hiking trip, he's down. Like, he's happy. He's excited to get married. It just makes no sense to me. And it's also like, if you wanted to keep the family separate or whatever, why are we having breakfast with your kid? Like, it's impossible. It doesn't make sense. Next question. What happens to Rory's book? Oh my gosh. Like, this is nightmarish. I don't understand what happened to Rory's book. I don't know how we are supposed to be made to believe that this book will be successful. Her job search was subpar at best. I can't imagine that her work ethic, despite getting into Chilton, despite getting into Yale, on her grandparents' connections and dime. Let me not even get into that. But like, how are we made to believe that like she's going to be successful at writing this book? She poured out 3 chapters. We don't know if they'll be any good. Sorry. Nothing thus far has actually said that you're a good writer. Nothing has proven that you're a good writer. It's actually very interesting when you go back, you're like, okay, the internship was really bad with Logan's dad. She was made editor-in-chief of the newspaper at Yale, only because everyone was so sick of Paris. They were like, Rory, you're good enough. You seem fine. We like you. She's gotten really far on being likable, but nothing thus far has told us that she's a good writer. So I just think it's funny that she's like, this is my calling. This is what I'm meant to do. Finally, I understand what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to write about Lorelai Gilmore's life. And then when that's resolved, it's kind of breezed over. Lorelai's like, I'm not going to read it. Like, you just do your thing. Okay. You're just not going to read it. Like, it's very interesting. At this point, it's funny because when Logan's dad said like, hey kid, you don't have the chops to like be a writer. Like, you're not good. You don't have it in you. Initially, I was like, oh, F this guy. This guy sucks. Now I'm just kind of like, he has a point. Hate to say it. Maybe you're a bad writer. We have never seen you write anything good, and you've only gotten negative feedback time and time again. You wrote one good story that some online blog liked, but then you didn't get the job. Sorry. Maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe she deserves it, though. Lastly, on unanswered questions, what was Suki on? What was going on there? I think there was probably a better way to write out Suki St. James, but only to then have her for a couple minutes in the last episode. Maybe they couldn't get Melissa McCarthy initially, and then they wrote her back in. She left for 2 years to pursue gardening. Gardening's not her passion. It never was. It's Jackson's passion. And we see him in the first episode at a vegetable stand, unbeanied up. Put the beanie back on. I'm just not understanding the co-owner thing, and maybe I missed it in the dialogue. She expresses a lot of remorse for abandoning Lorelai with the inn. And, you know, she says things like, you know, we were supposed to do this together. I feel so bad. Like, da-da-da-da. Could they not have just... I think there was a funnier and more clever way to write Melissa McCarthy's arc and work her into the story without even having her on site. And she left for 2 years to pursue vegetables. Who am I? I'm not a show writer. But I do think they could have figured it out because the original show was so good. Beloved by fans across the globe. They still sell merch on Amazon, on the WB site. You could have served the fans a little bit better, just a little. IMO. So, you know what? In conclusion, you know, I've stood on my soapbox here now for a very long time. In conclusion, if you were thinking about watching Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life, save yourself the 8 hours or so of runtime. You're going to get nothing. Let the finale of the original show just be what it is. And you can make your conclusions from there. You can pretend that Luke and Lorelai have a great life. You can pretend that they get married and have kids. I am nothing but disappointed. And as a true nutmegger, a true Connecticutan, I feel like my people have been misrepresented. Anyway, thank you. And I love you so much. I'll see you next week. Bye.